Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kirk Smith. I'm a scientist and battery researcher. And today I'm going to be introducing a project that I'm working on to build an open source battery for storing renewable energy. There's not really a great option for an open source battery. And even if there was an open source lithium battery, you'd probably need $1 billion to set up a factory to produce it according to the requirements. That's why I'm working primarily on water-based batteries, particularly flow batteries. Batteries are a pretty demanding application. There's a lot of very sensitive trade-offs, and you can improve one property and make three properties 10 times worse at the same time. So it takes a while. So we started a project called the Flow Battery Research Collective. We've already made a development kit that allows us to test different flow battery chemistries at a 2 square centimeter scale. And we're in the process of testing different chemistries in this kit and then trying to scale it up into currently we have a 175 square centimeter cell. All the parts we try to maximize laser cutting, vinyl cutting, 3D printing, FDM when possible. And eventually you probably have to injection mold things, but for now we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. Everything is open source on a Git repository. We have a web page, we have a forum. You can please come ask questions, participate. And yeah, I'll get into it. Okay, so I figured the best way to explain what a flow battery is to just look at one. This is a test cell that we've developed as part of the Flow Battery Research Collective. I'll be taking it apart, explaining the parts, and putting it back together. So it's made to fit in a catering container. It's just, oh, just to, in case there's any spills. So let's open it up. So a flow battery is just a battery that has forced convection or flowing liquid. So that often is accomplished using pumps. We have a positive side and a negative side here where we make the electrical connections. And a flow battery will generally always have one pump for the positive side, one pump for the negative side, one reservoir tank for the positive side, one reservoir tank for the negative side, and then the actual electrochemical cell where you make the connections and where the reactions happen. And then you have tubing that basically connects all these elements to each other. And all the time, generally, the pumps are running and circulating electrolyte from the reservoir through the cell and back. So basically, that's always going on. And you have a porous electrode in here where the liquid flows through, and then you do a redox reaction, either a reduction or an oxidation reaction, and then it just continues cycling. So let me go ahead and disconnect these, take off the clamp. This is how we close the cell. I'll undo the connections. Okay, so I took it all apart piece by piece. I normally wouldn't take all of that if I was just doing a new test, but just to show you all. These are the electrodes of the cell. This is like really the core. This is graphite felt. So it's conductive, but it's porous, so you can flow a liquid through it. And so we somehow have to make contact with this electrically and deliver the liquid electrolyte to this. So these, one side is for the positive, one side is for the negative, are separated by a porous separator. So this is Deramic. It is a mixture of polyethylene and silica, and it's microporous. And this is the same type of battery separator that's used in lead acid cells. So it's extremely cheap and robust, but it is not selective to any particular ion. So essentially in the cell, it is like this sandwich. You have the graphite felt on either side of this. So I'll show you how it all goes together. So this is a little jig to assemble. So we'll be starting with the positive side. So we have a brass plate here to make the electrical contact, and then there's a piece of graphite foil just laid on top of it. They kind of stick together once we put them, so I like to just kind of leave them on there to avoid tearing the graphite foil. So I'll set that on there like this. Then I'll be putting this is just a silicone gasket. Now we have a bit of a complicated piece. So this is 3D printed out of polypropylene. It's a flow frame. So liquid can come in here and then it's actually hollow and the liquid comes out of this edge here. And so it flows from here to here and then goes back into the frame and then out here. Okay. Next, we take one of the graphite felts, put it in. Then we put in a gasket. Then we put the separator. Then we put another gasket. Then we put the other flow frame. Then we put the other graphite felt for the negative side. A bit wet already, that's just water. Then we put another gasket. It's a lot of gaskets. 4 exactly. Then we put the other current collector, the outer current collector in brass and the inner current collector in graphite. And then this, we call this the end plate. This is just PLA rigid. Its purpose is to just be stiff and take the clamping force. So, boom. All right, now this is our not very tasty sandwich. So now throw a clamp on it. Yep. And that's a research scale flow battery cell. So now I can make the tubing connections. Okay. So now the cell is connected to the rest of the system. And what's left to do is prepare an electrolyte, put the electrolyte, usually about 5 milliliters on each side, and then just close the system, fold these over, and then start the test. There's two main chemistries that we're working with right now, and they're not actually true flow battery chemistries in the sense that they are not all liquid flow batteries. We are quite picky on the chemistries that we work with because we want to make sure that they're relatively safe and accessible in many places. So this rules out vanadium flow batteries. Vanadium is pretty toxic. It's actually hard to get and pretty expensive because the price is controlled by the steel industry. It's used as an alloying element. Iron chromium flow batteries have extremely strict purity requirements of the negative side to avoid excessive hydrogen evolution. Also, the chromium can be a bit toxic and hard to get. So we're starting with hybrid flow batteries, actually. We're focused on electrolytes where we're plating metallic iron or zinc on the negative side. So they're hybrid, they're not fully energy power decoupled like a conventional flow battery, where the volume of electrolyte in the tanks is the energy capacity, the surface area of the stack is the power capacity. In a true flow battery, that's not the case for hybrid because you can only plate a certain amount of metal into the electrode area. However, it's much cheaper for us to get these materials and the risk profile is better. And so we can still do all this work to make a good dev kit to increase the scale of the system and then change out to a true liquid flow battery chemistry better. These are just sort of, at least for now, benchmark chemistries that we can do engineering with because they're stable, cheap, and relatively safe. So these two chemistries for now are zinc iodide. So a zinc halide, similar to zinc bromine batteries, but with a risk profile for iodine and not bromine, which is better. And all iron hybrid flow batteries. This is pretty cool, actually. It's based on some really recent research based on what we call water in salt or WISE electrolytes, where you have an extremely high concentration of salt ions that reduces the water activity and reduces the risk of hydrogen evolution. So here we have the four main components of the electrolyte for the zinc iodide system, in addition to water, of course. So first we have ammonium chloride. This is just French ammonium chloride. This is primarily supporting electrolyte to increase conductivity and provide ions to pass through the ore separator. In addition, the ammonium cation actually changes the zinc plating behavior. It acts as a brightening agent. Then you have zinc chloride and potassium iodide. These together are cheaper than buying zinc iodide salt alone, which is a bit hard to find. Then we have triethylene glycol, which is an organic compound that we add to complex with the triiodide and pentaiodides in order to prevent the precipitation of solid iodine, which can cause the system to degrade. Here are the masses of the electrolyte in grams that we use for normal run. These are also in the documentation that's on the Git repository that's linked to on our website. And now I'll go ahead and prepare the electrolyte. So here I have the potentiostat running connected to the cell, but I haven't started charging yet. The pumps are on. I've put in all the settings, and now I'm going to go ahead and start charging. So you can see here at 60 milliamps, this is for 2 square centimeters. The voltage quickly jumps up to the expected charging plateau around 1.3 volts. And you see a bit of waves in the voltage reading. This is attributable to the pumps. They cause some pulsation. Can be other things as well, but not really a major concern. And I'm going to let this run for a while and see what happens. Yeah, so the test kind of went to shit. You can see a lot of the positive electrolyte leaked out. No leakage from the cell. I attribute this partially to the fact that we changed the pumps to be actually pulling electrolyte through the cell. So if there's a clog, say from solid iodine, which would happen on the positive side, then it wouldn't overpressurize the cell. It would just try to pull through the cell. But it does appear that something happened, not at the cell and not from a visible connection. So I think perhaps I started cycling it too aggressively. So my zinc iodide cell is kind of cooked. Um, Keeps pulling air in somehow because the cell is under slightly negative pressure. We actually pull electrolyte from the tank through the cell, through the pump, and back to the reservoir to prevent it overpressurizing in case we have a clog in the cell. So it's a bit safer, but I don't know why, but something's not right, and I've tried a lot, and I'm just gonna rebuild the entire thing. But I have another setup going, sparging with argon right now for an all iron test. So we'll see how that goes. These are the main components of the all iron hybrid flow battery electrolyte, excluding water, of course. So first we have iron 2 chloride. This is providing the iron, of course. Then we have magnesium chloride, and this is in extremely high concentration in order to basically reduce the concentration of water and therefore bind most of the water molecules and reduce the water activity, which makes it a lot harder for hydrogen to be produced, which is the case in a regular all iron hybrid flow battery. Then we have a small amount of hydrochloric acid, and then we use a bit of ascorbic acid to reduce some of the iron 3 that is sort of inherent in this cheap iron 2 that we buy and prevent a bit of the ambient air from oxidizing the solution while we're preparing it. So then transfer it to the cell, sparge it with argon, and start the test. Let us see what happens. Well, it's doing something. Ah, okay. Now I see. There's finally some discharge capacity. I think this is because it was just blowing through all of the ascorbic acid that we added to reduce some of the iron 3 and prevent air oxidation. So hopefully they keep getting bigger after this one. Okay, huge relief. It is at least a shitty battery. Okay, finally it's going a bit higher on the charging plateau, which is the intended reaction. I'm gonna let this thing go now, see what happens. Okay, I've got the test running. It's on the first discharge, so you can see here, charged up around a bit over 1.2 volts. Something happened here. Maybe some ascorbic acid that was lost somewhere came back around and got oxidized. And now it's on the discharge. So here, a bit less than 0.9 volts. And hopefully this takes a while. And I'm just going to go ahead and upload the video before I have the results because I'm about to leave for the Open Source Hardware Association conference in Berlin. And I'm going to let this run and see what it looks like when I get back. This isn't the normal way of doing battery development. Normally, you spin something out of a university with a couple patents, try to get some venture capital, don't really share too much of what you're doing or results. This is completely the opposite of that, but it also means that we're pretty broke. So if you have some spare change or anything to contribute, you're able to give financial contributions to the project on our Open Collective page. Really, every bit goes a long way. We have to buy gloves, vials, chemicals, rent for the workshops. I have to shout out my colleague Daniel. Here's a link to his blog. He's done a lot of the chemistry formulation for different electrolytes. Also, shout out to Professor Sami Fayez at Utrecht University, who really helped get the project off the ground, and to the NLNet Foundation for giving us our first grant that allowed us to keep going. So as you can see, we have a long way to go, but the more people we have, the easier it should be. So please don't hesitate to subscribe, hop in the comments with your questions, or participate on our forum. Thanks.